So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the December Health COI Act Health COI meeting. Very happy to have you here with us today, and whether you're here live or whether you're listening to this over the next few weeks, we do greatly appreciate your attendance. The Health COI is still working hard to try to pull people together to share conversations about all things health, about all things technology associated with health, and as you'll see today, about innovation. We are very fortunate to have four great panelists with us today, and looking forward to hearing what they've got to say. We will have meetings starting again next year, and looking forward to your involvement with us as we move forward into 2023. With that, I will turn to my co-chair, Todd, and see if Todd has anything that he'd like to add before we get started.
Not much besides just to thank everybody here. We are getting back on a monthly track for events. We are trying to alternate across events involving U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the VA, Defense Health, Military Health, et cetera. So we're trying to go back and forth. And today is a result of that. So let's simply introduce Macon Hardy, leader at Unisant, who's pulled this together, who I can't thank enough for pulling this together because it's a wonderful panel focused on what we really try to focus on. Innovative solutions, engaging industry with the government, really trying to collaborate and come up with some meaningful, impactful ideas and solutions and so on. So Macon, thank you for setting this up. Please take it away.
Thank you, Bobby and Todd. My name is Macon Hardy, Senior Vice President for Defense and National Security at Unisant. I'll be moderating today's panel. I'm so grateful to have each of the panelists here. It's been a blast just kind of getting set up for this. So thank you all for your time. We've got about 45 minutes before some of our panelists might have to drop. So we're going to get right into the content. We do have some time to take questions in the chat box towards the end of the discussion. So for those that are able to hang on, please save your questions. So let me tell you a little bit about what we are talking about today. Over the course of the past few years, we've all had a front row seat to watch the collaboration between government and industry. The response to the COVID-19 pandemic has put on display a version of research and tech transfer that's not often a reality, and certainly not at the speed that we witnessed. Many of us have heard the term the valley of death with respect to industry and government sharing innovation. This exists in both commercializing government and academic innovation and in bringing commercial innovation into the government. So behind this term are a bunch of factors that contribute to it. For one, the healthcare market is very complex. There are a bunch of stakeholders in the mix. You've got federal government, HHS, DoD, regulatory and FedCiv agencies, pharma, us in industry, academia, and investors as well, among others. The path from the solution to the customer, the patient often in this case, has more steps, takes a lot more time, and requires a lot more navigation than some of our other research missions, especially across DoD. And some of the steps are critical and add value, like patient safety regulations, of course, but some don't add any value at all. Further, innovation is iterative now. It doesn't follow the nice linear model that many of our government agencies are accustomed to facilitating. So with this complex market ecosystem, combined with the way that tech development has evolved, it's made the success stories pretty hard fought. So today we're bringing together leaders from DoD, ARPA-H, and venture capital to discuss what works, what's challenging them, and how we can improve our partnerships for better outcomes. So I'm going to have each of the panelists, panelists introduce themselves. And what I'd like to hear first is kind of what's your organization's role in this ecosystem? So I'm going to start with maybe Dr. Olson. Do you want to kick that off and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Nils Olson. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Defense Innovation Unit. I'm a physician trained as a pathologist, which means we run clinical labs, cancer diagnostics. I specialize in test and evaluation. DIU, Defense Innovation Unit, connects commercial markets to DoD requirements. We have locations in Silicon Valley, DC, Boston, Austin, and our newest office in Chicago. Our prototype partners are often mission partners. Our process works best when we've identified a program executive office that will own the requirements, but we often start before the requirements process. So, it's a one white sheet of paper and get going.
Justin, what say you?
I'd like to also do Niels's bio. Niels is the reigning Sailor of the Year within the Navy. I'll do James and Craig next, but for now, I'm a technologist and buyer. My main hat, we all wear multiple hats, is Department of the Navy Tech Director for Enterprise Systems, Networks, and IT. I like to see and need to see innovation making it to the other end. My previous role at the Defense Health Agency and the military health system was pulling some of that innovation over specifically on the data side of things, and continue to work with the VA and HHS to make those inroads possible. So from the DIU side, from the NSF and NIH side, and then also even from the venture capital side, we're looking at extending the dollars from the full ecosystem so we can get the best outcomes possible.
Wonderful. Craig?
Yeah, so man, I was waiting for Justin's roast if he said he was going to do everybody's bio. Exactly afterwards. So I am currently setting up the commercialization program for ARPA-H. We're a brand new federal agency, and our goal is to take the DARPA model and apply it to the health space. So we're brand new. We don't have any programs yet. We're currently recruiting program managers. But my background, I'm an attorney. I also have worked in government contracting. And my last stop was in DoD, running a rapid prototyping program. And really, my main superpower in life is a bureaucracy hacker and getting capabilities to what I call survive in the wild. So that's taking something through all the way from the prototype stage, either to getting a government customer to adopt it or to have industry adopt it. And right now at ARPA-H, my team is building the infrastructure to do that at scale. So that means not just like parachuting it at the end and be like, hey, who wants to buy this? But persistently de-risking each step. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, in the panel session. But basically, people oftentimes think of transition that happens at the end. I'm starting even before we have our first program manager on board to build the services to make that happen.
Wonderful. And James?
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. I'm the principal for health and human performance at Decisive Point. We're an East Coast-based venture capital firm. We make investments in early stage technologies, not only in health, but also defense, energy, you name it. Our secret sauce, if you will, is that when we make a direct equity investment, we also help those early stage founders to get government contracts, to get government grants. And really the objective there is that we're trying to help them get non-dilutive capital to bridge that valley of debt. Since our USP is the ability to get grants and contracts, typically the technologies that we invest in will align quite well with what we perceive to be the needs of the nation in the future. You also asked about our role in the ecosystem. I think as a VC, we do the standard of trading capital for equity and hope that it is going to be high growth, high return. We just do that with the intention of those companies fulfilling a critical mission need for our country, albeit portable nuclear reactors on the energy side, soft neural implantable probes on the health side, qubits, you name it. So
Wonderful. Well, it's great that we've got kind of the entire continuum here represented. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to start with Dr. Olson. So can you tell me a little bit more about the demands that your organization at DIU is responding to with respect to improving access to innovation? I'll have you take it, and then others can kind of chime in as well.
Sure. Generally, we have a mission partner who needs to move fast and has some idea of what they want, but it's like I said, well ahead of the requirements process. So, if you need to build an F-35 fighter with a 20-year requirements process, we're probably not the right shop. But in 2016, Ash Carter came out to Silicon Valley and found out that he had been the first SecDef to come out in 20 years and realized that we need to reestablish that relationship with the commercial markets. So we find companies are actually pretty eager to engage with the DoD, and the other transaction authority that we use for a lot of things is fairly accessible to them in their processes. Internally, our demand on ourselves is our transition rate. So we're looking for knowing who that buyer is going to be and making sure that we know that they have some plan to catch this on the other side. We still do not win. I think our batting average is around 40%. But you know, that's pretty solid in the majors. And if we got everything right, we probably wouldn't be trying hard enough. That said, you know, we're looking for technologies that have a proven track record. We're disincentivized away from doing or funding basic research. We do have the National INSIN and INSIC that reach earlier into the process. But mainly we're looking for technologies that have a proven track record in the commercial market.
Great.
For next, so if Niels and that side of DoD is the leadoff batter and they're batting 400, then they're chasing Ricky Henderson. I'm later in the lineup, so either cleanup or ninth, depending on how we're performing. And so with the larger budgets and later stage, what my organizations in general are looking to do to improve access to innovation is to signal better and buy better. And so we do this not by being at the end and waiting until the bat gets passed down, but we do this with relationships. So hanging out with people who are smarter than I am, like the 3 on the call here or 4 on the call here, and then and pushing them in terms of, hey, here's what we need to see. This is what it would look like if we were able to buy a more thinking solution, because there are a lot of people from my place in the timeline who are comfortable doing what has always been done, and that really negatively affects innovation. So we're trying to be thinking buyers, and we're trying to ensure that with some wins, that spreads like wildfire. There are other folks within the VA, within DHA, within the military in general who want to do this, but the leap of faith, it can be difficult at times. And so by being that clear, lean forward type buyer, we want to prove that out for everybody else. And I see industry is on today. We want you to help us prove that out with clarity. In some cases, industry is or can be clearer than government. Help us with that so that we can get to a more meaningful ends altogether.
You said about signaling better. What does that mean to you, or how are you all improving there with that signaling and that conversation with industry and other stakeholders?
So if we're only a landing zone to incumbents and the way that we've always done things, then we are playing a part in the innovation theater. And to show that we are serious about innovation, we need to make buying decisions that represent that. So what that might look like is, Agile was mentioned. And so from a waterfall perspective, using waterfall requirements to buy things is going to lead to something small, or if we get stuck in a requirements or prescriptive requirements conversation, then we're not going to get anywhere. So my organization this year, for the first time, reached out to Niels's within DIU and said, help us buy something that we have a non-prescriptive requirement. We can tie that. If we get to go from an OTA to an OTP, if we can put that in production, that will signal to people that you don't have to wait 3 years for something to be perfectly defined by people who are probably not in the position to perfectly define it. We want to lean forward. We want to get some wins that show outcomes so that that's lower risk for everybody else, especially in the healthcare space.
So maybe I'll take this to Craig as he's posturing his organization to show success, right? What does that, how does your organization, how does ARPA-H define what success looks like? And do you have any success stories? I know you're just kind of getting off the ground, but what are you looking for in a success story?
Yeah, great question. So, again, I come from DoD land, and we always had, like Justin and Niels just talked about, a defined customer. I was always used to supporting the warfighter. One of the challenges with ARPA-H, but an amazing opportunity, is that we don't have that same type of defined customer with a budget. We have to get something in the hands of the American public, or the arms, or the mouth, or however you define a health solution. And so the way that I define success is getting our projects to survive in the wild, like I mentioned at the top in my little intro. So innovation theater, I hate it, like Justin mentioned. And so ultimately, we're all consumers of the American health system, and I think we all recognize that it's flawed. I'll give you, for instance, I was in the ER for 8 hours with my son yesterday. Everything is fine, but the whole time I was in there, I was like, hey, someone should fix this. And so for me, success looks like a better patient experience. It looks like actually operating at a relevant time frame. So again, just ripping off Justin's point, if we're just thinking incrementally, like waterfall, like I know exactly how I'm going to fix this, you're only going to get incremental solutions. And all of our personal experiences can tell you that incremental, if I wait 7 hours in the ER instead of 8, that's not really that's not really very helpful. And so really success looks like, transformational change that people who are the beneficiaries will recognize that something is better in their lives. So that's one thing. That's what it'll feel like. And sorry to be a little bit verbose, but I want to make sure I give a complete answer. So what it'll feel like to end users is just a different experience, something that they recognize as valuable, not something that's hidden. What it's going to look like from a government perspective is persistent engagement with industry and the entire ecosystem. So again, like I said at the top, oftentimes the government thinks if you can do something and then plop it and then expect industry to adopt it or whatever, and that's just not the case. If you're going to approach an investor, maybe James could speak to this in a minute. There has to be some value there. So we have to think through this process of how do we de-risk this so that this totally transformational solution that someone will actually want to invest in it. And so this looks like a very intentional process from a government perspective of like constant engagement, understanding what will investors think, what will customers think, and it's just a very different approach than I think most people are used to, but ARPA-H will take as we go through and try to get our solutions to survive in the wild. Hopefully that made sense.
For sure.
I'm gonna take the baton from you, Craig, there. So I think it made a lot of sense to me. And just from the venture capital point of view, our fundamental outcome measure is going to be return on investment over fund life, and we have an obligation to our own investors to maximize those returns and make ethical choices with their capital. But just like a clinical trial has a primary outcome measure, we have secondary measures that we use to guide whether or not we're able to fulfill our mission. We have varying forms of success rates ourselves in terms of getting government grants and contracts for the companies that we work with. And one metric that we use to really define success in this area is how much capital we get per dollar directly invested. So how much money from the US government do our companies, are they competitively awarded? And that we found is a way to really benchmark what degree does the US government across the various federal agencies agree with the types of investments we're making. So.
And that goes back to Neil's point earlier of like knowing the buyer and, regardless of which direction this innovation is going in, it's knowing what that market looks like downstream. Any other comments?
Yeah, on that, you'll notice no one talked about technology in depth, right? We're not measuring project plans and dependencies. Those are necessary, but that's just that's table stakes. Those are the means to get there. We don't want to talk about the CRM. We want to talk about outcomes. We may have been able to afford being vague or opaque in the past, arguably not, but now more than ever, the urgency to be transparent, to demand that from us in the government, and for us to hold our industry and academic partners to the same, like thinking through these ideas so we can be deliberate, so we can figure out if matchmaking works or doesn't work. Salespeople want to be told yes. The second best answer to a salesperson is no. No one wants to be dragged along, right? So if we can get on with some of these discussions to outcomes, which will always be the outcome, the mission, the charter of the organizations that we're representing, not some small underlying piece. So like we're using within Navy and military health system, outcome-driven metrics. Operational metrics, like technical metrics, still matter, but they roll up only insofar as they align to that overarching outcome. So as we dig into why, and as Craig probably got a lot of questions, maybe 5 why questions, that's how little kids do it. We want to know the real answer, not the canned messaging that's behind the main point. We want to get to the question behind the question as soon as possible for all of our sakes.
Yeah, can I actually piggyback on that? Because there's a one thing I think we all missed, which is when you talk about outcomes, every single project will not be a success. And so our outcome metric has to be sort of probabilistic. If we're hitting 100% success rate, it means that we haven't, held ourselves to, a transformational enough mission. And so at least, with my agency, I'm not sure exactly where you set that bar, but, there's the high risk, high reward aspect of that. And so, maybe 20% of your projects are going to scale into the wild. That might be successful. If 100% of them are scaling, then you're not really moving the needle. You're just, part of the system.
And that makes prioritizing so difficult. But that's a matter that we all deal with, is trying to figure out, where to put resources and time when you've got the high risk, high reward situations. Let's talk about timeline. So, we've talked about signaling, and we talked about getting down to the, investor stage, and Craig, I think you said starting to talk about transition immediately. Can we talk a little bit about what the timelines are? Because each of your organizations have very different timelines and roles along this kind of continuum. James, maybe I'll go to you. Tell me about your timeline. Tell me about what you're contending with and what the impacts of timing are for your organization in BC.
Sure. Yeah. So, in venture capital, we have legal deadlines associated with the wrap up of our fund, during which time we need to make exits. And typically that's within 10 years in a standard fund life. Yeah. This can be extended given support from limited partnership, but that's usually not the case. So, if you take a 10-year fund life, and it means you need to effectively have exited all of your investments in that time. Really, what we need to do is we need to front load our investments over a period of, let's say, 1 to 5 years, and then exit those investments over the last kind of 5 years. We do that. Timing is everything. We do that with the intention of the holding period going across one of the value inflection points of each company that we invest in. And so, timing is critical, because if you get that wrong, you might have a great return on investment in your hands, but be unable to capture it, practically speaking, because it's just not within the realm of what you can do with your fund. So, it's worth pointing out too that there are other types of venture capital models out there. I'm calling in today from one of our partners' offices, MIT's The Engine. They have roughly a 15-year fund lifespan, which, as a result, they can take a different view of technology. They can go a bit earlier, a bit higher risk potentially, perhaps something closer to what Craig would be seeing on the ARPA-H side. So that's kind of the venture capital timing aspect, I think.
Which one of you wants to to take a stab at it from your organization standpoint.
I'd like Justin to poetically go over the timings of each of our different divisions. I think that would be, sorry to put you on the spot, Justin, but I thought you said it quite well.
Okay, so if I'm rhyming, if iambic pentameter is required, then I'm going to ask Niels to lead off there. So I will I'll wait for DIU and then I'll wrap a bow.
Yeah, there's no iambic pentameter here, but so we have a pretty fixed timeline of 18 months to 2 years in a lot of cases. Our contracting timeline, we try to keep under 90 days. We count ourselves late if we're over 100 days from solicitation on the street to signed contract. That said, there are some wide margins around that. Recently, we had one of the first projects of DIU, Sail Drone, finally got picked up by CTF 59 out in Fifth Fleet area. That took 6 years. So, we acknowledge that sometimes, even if the technology is ready, the market's not ready on the DoD side, or maybe the market's ready, but they just haven't figured out how to assemble all the things yet. So there is a sort of a pile of stuff sitting on the shelf ready to go if we identify somebody who wants it. And that is actually one of the tricks is keeping that company alive to deliver, right? So we work on engaging with our local VC groups. That's actually really important. And we find about one of our dollars fetches the company between 8 and 20 commercial dollars. So people see our investment as a signal. And so now you can see sort of there's from 100 days to James's 10 years, there's some version of a path to get from here to there. And that said, every one of them is unique. We actually tried to sit down and have a study internally of go through all the documentation of all the projects. And, these poor guys came crawling back after like 6 months, just like, I could not find a pattern here. So how you get
So
there is unique for everyone.
it is. So I think to both of those points, we're best when we do this together. So if we're looking farthest out, then the engine at 15 years is the farthest we know of anyone. And then you have DARPA and ARPA-H and BARDA, who are looking at something that is between that and a VC timeframe. And so the further out you are, hopefully the larger bet you can make, because you're seeding huge change. You're looking for those transformations, which can be reflected in your PWin, your probability of success. But this allows you to take those bigger risks. If all goes well, then the VC community sees something that they find that's worth investing in. They amplify that with dollars. And if they're doing their due diligence and selecting well, then that both helps bridge the valley of death and buys down some of the risk for either Niels to work on that and bet on that early stage, or me when it's more mature. My timeline is the shortest and is expected to be the highest maturity. So our failures are seen differently. We're trying to shift towards a more lean forward attitude, but we have to be successful in the billions of dollars of spend more often than someone who's taking chances. That only happens in anything more than an incremental way if we are sequenced and aligned across this full ecosystem to have the risk bought down, because we're going to keep buying what we bought before unless something that's very mature comes along, or unless that we see an inroad to doing things differently. And that's where each of these players have incentives in of themselves. I don't know that there's like a holistic incentive set, but we're all better if we stay aligned. And the mechanism for doing that right now is kind of one-on-one relationships or some discussions, but this is something that we need to tighten up and get better at. I'm acting within the radius of the POM, which is 3 to 5 years. So in general, if I'm going to do something, if my organizations are going to do something transformational, unless it was an amazing idea, it's because Niels, Craig, James have had their hands on it and are flagging, hey, this is something special. Let's get there now.
So we've talked about the success stories and kind of what makes that up. Let's talk about the other side of that, kind of the impediments, the challenges, stumbling blocks. Not sure who wants to start here. James, do you want to talk about that? We'll start back with you at the kind of the front end of that timeline.
Yeah, happy to. I just spoke about kind of timing and how important that is to venture capital. So if you have R&D ongoing within a company and that takes longer than expected, it can inadvertently run out the clock, so to speak, on that VC investment. There's a variety of metrics that might be diminished, such as IRR, et cetera, but really that's the challenge, is being able to support a company across that inflection point and trying to understand a priori what are going to be the capital needs and all the other needs of that company as they try to go across the inflection point. I think, at Decisive Point, we take a different approach and we try to source non-dilutive capital in order to help a company accelerate their R&D timeline so that they can fit more in the lifespan of the investment. To be honest, I think I have a laundry list of kind of impediments to success that I could name, but I'll stop there and pause for anyone else to chime in.
If you had to hold, if I had a gun to my head and I had to pick one, I would pick 3 letters, ATO. Authorization to operate is very challenging, particularly in the biomedical space. It's sort of a cultural shift where the FDA, it's not a primary focus of theirs. And so it's not inherently incentivized in the commercial markets for healthcare things. And then these companies hit, the DHA process or somebody else's ATO process, and all of a sudden it may cost more to get the authority to turn it on than the thing cost. And it may take, a week to deliver the thing and a year to get the authority to turn it on. And it involves an incredible number of subspecialists who all have their individual categories, because legitimately they're managing, 1,000 systems with this one function. This one person handles 1,000 systems with this thing. This person handles 1,000 systems with this thing. And there's somebody that's actually got to then keep track of, well, all right, your widget over here is going to do this thing. In order for it to do that thing, which you have to explain, right? Or we'll bring in this person and that person, this person over there and that person over there, and find some way to wedge, a call in where they're all talking to a whole bunch of people. It becomes very challenging. And culturally, it's sort of two titans coming together and getting to shake hands a little tricky.
Yeah. Craig,
Talk about 2 other titans. Go
ahead, Justin.
Please. Oh, just so there's the cyber folks and operation folks, and ultimately we want them to work together for speed. That happens sometimes. Another matching algorithm is the solution providers and the folks who need it, and how do we do that well? So we all meet with industry, that there are a lot of good ideas coming out of industry, and that's what we want. But that sorting, we want that mid-air refueling to be cleaner. There are some organizations that spray and pray, and that it's very time consuming. And then there are some that really target. and they target smartly. And the ones who do that, maybe they can be afforded. There's different situations, but if we're not providing a clear enough message for you to target or mid-air refuel, give us feedback. Anyone who's offended, send them to me. We just want that clear feedback on how we can communicate more effectively in a mass way, so that we are getting better suggestions, so that we can fast forward to the good part. If someone comes with a great solution that is either tone deaf to our specific problems or canned, or they don't have a mechanism for us to do that. I mean, we don't have, if you come with a SBIR phase 2, that's infinitely better than, hey, we're, going to be on GSA in 2 years. Okay, well, like, send me a flyer then. So how to connect. I mean, Macon likes to talk about online dating and matching. The idea of how we actually match successfully faster to get past the first half of the dance and into the good part would be key for, I think, everyone involved in the ecosystem.
I think Craig had mentioned earlier that, that starting with the mindset of transition, and that's key to it, is that every stakeholder along the way is already thinking forward to what that transition looks like and how to kind of grease that a bit.
I think this is probably the most common concept that's missed by startups that we see on the venture side, that they don't realize that the government has no mandate to buy cool technology for the sake of cool technology. But in fact, you need to have customers, end users in mind. So I think, great point. And I definitely stress that further.
Yeah, and I'm kind of laughing in this conversation because one of the projects that Justin and I worked on together is a transition playbook, and one of the deliverables out of this was a list of friction points. So you're talking about all the different things that make things hard. Oh, I'm looking at a list of 100 that we sourced from people. So it's tough. And Macon, if you don't mind, I'll kind of jump in with an answer to kind of give DIU a fist bump. I think the biggest blocker. There you go. Yeah, Niels, let's pound it out. So I think the biggest blocker from a government perspective is doing business with us. Our processes are so difficult. And one of the things that I was a couple of years ago, a customer of DIU. And one of the things that I modeled in my last program was how DIU does business. It is much easier and quicker and friction-free than the typical government contracting process. And probably everybody on this panel and everybody listening is well aware of the problem that, it's a little opaque to do business with the government. However, I think too often government is not aware of that. And so I think the good thing is that you have a number of people here who are, and organizations like DIU are really leading the way to reduce that friction. Like we mentioned, other transaction authority earlier, absolutely, fantastic mechanism that I've made great use of. And, I hope that organizations like ours will kind of lead the way and make other government organizations jealous and kind of teach them, hey, you have to make it easy to do business with us.
And it's incumbent upon us in industry as well to adapt quickly. It's not easy to get to understand how a process works and how to work within the confines of that process, and it shifts necessarily. But it's on us to quickly adapt to that and to give you all what you need in the way that you need to receive it. So it's on all of us. Back to that partnership. I know we're going to start losing some of the panelists, so let's maybe close out with the good news. Let's talk about, like, what does a good partnership look like? How can we improve this, and what do you all want to see out of a great partnership? Justin, do you mind taking that one?
Yeah, come to the dance ready to party. And so what that looks like tactically is if you are like, for instance, a startup or someone who's early stage, but could also apply to someone who's established and just has a good idea. The scene from the 40-Year-Old Virgin where Jonah Hill has the money and has the shoe and just can't make that transaction. Like, let's decode that for a second. So what that looks like is the pool combo shot where you come ready with, hey, here is a customer, an end customer who doesn't necessarily have the ability to buy that. So IndoPaycom or someone at the end, like a hospital system, someone at the end who is able to make that that purchase, or who is able to use that even if they can't make that purchase, and then a contracting vehicle within the government, both of those coming to the buyer, that just makes this downhill running. So that makes it so much easier. If we had the other day, I met with In-Q-Tel, and they said, hey, we have a solution based on one of the needs that you gave us, and we're paying for it. And so the CEO was just sitting there like smiling, didn't need to say anything, because that's an easier yes than like a pitch. On the left side of the V, if you come connected, that's a combo shot that has much higher probability. So if you say, hey, I have a TRL 5 or 6 thing, Tatrick is on board, and this hospital is on board, let's buy that. We can talk about a number of examples, but that ups James's and Neil's matching quotient, and then it ups the time from idea to production delivery to outcomes. That there's a quicker feedback loop on that. That's what we want.
I've been looking for an opportunity to make this observation. I think the most valuable experience I got going into this world was with my dad going to Texas pawn shops, right? You've got some things you need, probably not urgent, and you don't need it to be the best, but you need things that work, and you go in and you've got a list of 10, you find 3, you haggle, you walk out with 2, and you're good, and you go to the next shop and find something. But along the way, there's this huge negotiation space that you learn to play with, and finding out how much money do they have in it, how much money can you get sideways. Go, for the government folks, like, go take a vacation to Arlington, Texas, and find some pawn shops. It is incredibly useful for switching from kind of the government contracting process to how commercial folks think about money. They're not, things are fungible.
Scott Wilson, thanks for that. Craig or James?
I think, just the thing I'll say, really focusing on early stage companies, is that process of customer and end user discovery and partnerships, that is not always a straightforward thing to accomplish. And it can take a lot of time. It can take a lot of effort, interviews, emails, cold outreach, really to refine your value proposition in the context of government use cases. But also B, just identify the stakeholders that occasionally might turn over, by the way, but just identify them and be able to communicate with them. So, don't be dismayed, I think, if your company isn't selected for a phase 1 AFWERX SBIR on the first kind of time around. But I do really believe that if you can nail the value proposition and you can identify the right end users and use cases, the government's a brilliant, reliable revenue stream to bolster commercial R&D. So I encourage everyone to pursue that.
Any other last words? I know we're going to start losing folks, but I want to open it up to folks online that have some questions.
This is Todd Fantastic. I have one, and this has been a tremendously helpful conversation, especially for a lot of us who are pinging me on the side here, come really from more the NIH, Health and Human Services side of this world. You mentioned a lot. You mentioned FDA. You mentioned BARDA, the Biomedical Radiological Defense Act. We talked some about NIH. We talked about risks and interesting non-traditional players coming into these markets and so on. Could you please, I think, Craig, my question is mostly directed at you in terms of, you've given us sort of a framework of the intent of ARPA-H. But in the NIH community, you have a national laboratory, you have grant mechanisms and so on. Could you maybe try to give us like one example of how what an ARPA-H project would do and how it might differ from just a traditional NIH program? Is that a fair question to ask you?
I feel like you're an audience plant because that's a great question. No, that's great. So the main difference between NIH and ARPA-H is the business model. There's definitely a place for both. It's not duplicative. It's just a vastly different way of approaching the health space. So, typically NIH is, hypothesis-driven grant style research. ARPA-H is the DARPA model where we are solutions-based. So these are contracts. We go out there, and I guess I'll just briefly explain the ARPA model, because I know that this is not necessarily intuitive for people if they don't have DARPA experience, but everything starts with a program manager. A program manager is just, a renowned expert, someone who's really visionary, and this person comes in for a term limited appointment. In the case of ARPA-H, it's 3 years, and with the opportunity to double that up for a total of 6 years. And during that time, that program manager comes in with they're given a budget, and they get to award contracts and basically run experiments. So my office supports those program managers and those programs, but it's very much focused on the program manager kind of living in the future, imagining what a better future is going to be like, and then coming back to the present day, doing a number of experiments, kind of like, creating novel teaming arrangements, but forcing academic performers, startups, large companies to sort of like mix and match to then create some sort a transformational type of solution. So just a vastly different business model operating at a different scale of funding. You can have programs like $100 million on things, different appetite for risk. Now, being very clear, this is not risk to humans. We're not experimenting on people. This is, hey, this program might not work, or it might. It's okay if everything doesn't have that 100% success rate, like I mentioned. But yeah, that's the main difference, is the business model. Does that answer your question?
It does, and the earlier points about the challenges that non-traditional government contractors have in doing business with the government is a point really well taken, and I certainly appreciate that. A successful project, a PM has a really successful one of these, and it's a disease area of interest to NIH. Does the next step, does it get transferred to NIH? Does it get transferred to industry? What happens next?
Oh man, another listen, this person's here. I don't know you, but I should know you. This is fantastic. Okay. We could have a number of endpoints, I think, and this can be very project dependent. So I'm trying not to give you too, opaque of an answer. But for me, most of our endpoints will be commercial. Success will look like a company that becomes commercialized and then, either licenses their technology or sells their product directly. And I'll just give you for instance, from DARPA. So famous for, consumer GPS, Siri, the internet, all of these things scale outside of government. These things are not things that, were adopted by, NIH, even though, the DoD's customer, or DARPA's customer is DoD, that, real success were things that kind of grew out. That being said, there are definitely projects that NIH would be the end consumer. It's just really going to depend on the program.
Very good.
And so on that, it depends, just to continue that a little bit. When I was at DARPA for the short time that I was, the I2 of the software office. So we think about healthcare, we think about healthcare IT, but in this particular case, there were solutions that we said, hey, does transitioning this to a government organization give us the best bang for the buck? And the answer was, let's put this open source. So we made some things open source that would get wider. Everyone had access, but that just meant that we weren't insulated in only the DoD using this. Then the people who were selling it back to us could do that, and kind of everyone won. So that was a kind of a triple win type situation, as opposed to just either owning it within the government which isn't known for scale necessarily in that type of way on the tech side, or giving it to one company versus another. So there are some platforms like that that have shown proven to be very good at scaling, to amplify Craig's examples.
Sure. The short answer is that there's no one answer to it. Each one is unique, right? It could go industry, could go government, could go somewhere in between. By the way, Justin, I have to call you on something. I believe the movie you wanted to quote was Superbad and not 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Let's talk about that. I'm less sure than you are, but I'm willing to bet $1.
I had to call you on that one. Can I perhaps ask James first, and then the rest of you just to comment? If you had to pick one thing, one particular area, disease area, technical area, something that is the hottest that you're seeing, what might that be?
Yeah, good question. I struggled to, I have two in mind, so I'll touch on both of them because I struggled to name a forerunner. I think we're seeing a lot of synthetic biology that is very attractive from an investment point of view, both for the capabilities that you can achieve with these different platform tools, but also we believe just the untapped potential of synthetic biology, probably accelerated by mRNA and whatnot. The second area that we're seeing a lot of innovation in is neurotechnology. We are seeing companies, early stage companies, going after tougher indications with more intricate technology than they have before, and really trying to prove out capabilities that several years ago would have seemed magical and just voodoo witchcraft almost. So that's very exciting. Whether or not the neurotechnology pans out, I think that's TBD, but it's definitely exciting.
Absolutely. Any other takers on the question?
Dr. Olson, do you want to say one last thing before I know you've got to drop?
Right.
Something that's exciting to you that's on the forefront?
I think the technology that's really ready for uptake and kind of organizational build out in biotech is PCR testing. Like, everybody understands what it is now.
Yeah.
There's pretty much nobody who doesn't understand what PCR testing is at some level. And so you can start having conversations that people would just glaze over 3 years ago. And now you can walk into any room and in a minute have somebody up to speed on, hey, we want to do wastewater analysis as a leading community indicator. And they're like, oh, I totally get it. And this is a computer scientist at Lawrence Livermore. So, I can walk into the Pentagon and talk to, helicopter pilots about the same thing. It's just been this sort of striking experience from life in the lab before COVID to life in the lab after COVID. People get it. So I think, like James has noted, synthetic biology is a short hop away from PCR, but can I deploy PCR for virtually anything today? Yeah. And that's sort of where DIU can lean in. If somebody has a requirement, and we can probably find PCR things that fit that bill quickly. Over.
Thanks. All right. I think we're about to wrap up. If there's any questions that are coming in, I can certainly get these to our panelists as well as things come in after the fact. I know we've got a couple of other comments from the ACT-IACT team, but I am just tremendously thankful to each of you. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate all of your insights and the time you've taken here with us. So appreciate that. We've also been working across time zones, so appreciate the strange hours. So thank you so much. Can let you all jump as you need to, but we've got some ACT-IACT homework to do. Is that right? Is that Todd or Bobby?
Oh, we love giving homework. No, no, I mean, that is part of our intent here, is to not just have these nice little sessions, but have some continual back and forths and collaboration. So yes, if there's anything else that And if you want to share with this community, we can certainly push that. And I would certainly encourage people today to share with our panelists if there's something of particular interest.
Todd, can you talk a little bit about the projects? And that's in addition to these events, it's producing work products for our government partners in this that we want you all to take advantage of. And I know that you've got a list as long as your arm of things that you might want some of our time and investment in. So Todd, can you kind of talk about what those projects are intended to do?
Yeah, in 30 seconds. Really what we seek to do is have 3-month-long projects between a group of industry people and one or more people from the government to work on a particular challenge and really engage and discuss and come out with a formal white paper, some sort of a product at the end of it that is helpful for the government official, that is helpful for the industry participants, and is helpful for our community as a whole. And we try to focus on impactful topics, of course, around health that address our primary major government health agencies. That's the gist of it. We've done a few. I think the most successful we've had was with the VA, one around synthetic data. That was particularly well received. We have a couple in the works for NIH and so on. That's really why we exist, besides these monthly meetings, is to have those regular engagements, collaborating between industry and government on a very specific challenge. So if anybody has ideas for those, please bring them to Bobby, to me, to Macon, anybody here on the leadership team, and we'll help move those forward.
Yeah, great point, Todd, there. Macon, just wanted to add to that. And what the projects really allow us to do is to leave a legacy for this particular organization. So the Health COI not just come together and have conversations, which this was incredibly valuable and a great presentation, a great discussion, and kind of outside of our norm also in what we do. So Macon, thank you. And thank you to the panelists for bringing this together and making this happen today. But what these projects allow us to do is to go out, work with our government partners, work with industry, work with academia, and bring together material and analysis, and then leave it for others, not only to come to our site and see that now, but there may be someone a year from now, 2 years now, 3 years from now, thinking about synthetic data, and they can go back to that white paper that we created, that project output, as well as we had a half-day session with the VA and other government partners on synthetic data. So there's a lot of material that was created on that. And we want to do that for other critical topics that our partners may need us to dig into. And as I think we've all learned here, myself as government and our industry partners, is it helps us to come together as one and figure out what is in the greater good, as opposed to the give and take sometimes that happens in day-to-day operations.
And I see Craig's asking for some recruiting support. So please, for all of us that are looking at this, to get that out to our networks to help Craig build out his team. Wonderful.
Okay, so we still have up to a half an hour. We trained to standard around here, not to time. So there's no need for us to stay on for half an hour. But we do, from a pure business point of view, want to talk very briefly about the upcoming year. For those that are on here that have been to these meetings multiple times before, thank you for coming back. Thank you for your involvement. And we want to lean on you a little bit as we go into 2023. We have great plans for growth. And not growth just to simply say that we grew, but growth so that we can bring more value to the industry. This is a health COI focused organization. And so all things health that we may be able to get involved. We've seen really great growth already because of bringing in Macon and bringing in others that have helped us with some of our project work that we're doing, and also specifically with the work around VA and around HHS. And we want to continue to kind of push that envelope a little bit. The more partners that we have, whether they're from government or whether they're from industry, then the more touch points that we have Todd has a lot of deep relationships at NIH, and we've leaned on those before. I've got a few here at HHS that we've leaned on, and others have helped us to bring people together. So for those that are here, know we're going to reach out to you. We're going to ask you to get more involved. We're going to ask you to bring a project to the table, to bring one in for discussion. You may not be the expert on that project, but you may know where there's work that needs to be, that we need to dig into more. We're going to try to be as diligent as possible in 2023 about having these monthly meetings to bring our organization together. We are planning to lean a little bit more into doing these in person, and maybe we'll start with some hybrid and then more into in person, because we want to bring this community together so that we can socialize as well as collaborate. Okay,
Bobby, I'll just remind everybody, please make sure if you haven't already, please follow our Health COI on LinkedIn. That is how we pushed out most of our updates, and we have a nice little network out there. So if you are not part of the Health COI LinkedIn following group, ping me or look for it, or ping Bobby and make sure you get connected.
Thanks, Todd. Nancy, you make all these things happen for us, and you're in the know with all things ACT-IACT. Is there anything else that we should put out today or that we should discuss for our internal group?
Nothing really specific. I do want to say hi to Scott Corey. Welcome back. He was our speaker a couple of months ago when he presented with his team. So thanks for joining us again. And then I saw Paul is here. I know Paul is pursuing this project with NIH, and I wondered if he would like to chat about that, if he's able to.
Hello. Yeah, so we have a few ideas from NIH about some projects. There is, is it All of Us? Is that the proper term? Which is a center at NIH, which is trying to create a million, to recruit information about 1 million Americans and their health, and identify some common characteristics that are particularly or health issues that are associated with some particular characteristics about our American population. So we're exploring some projects around there, and we're also exploring a project around the Research Authentication Service. I believe that's what RAS stands for, which enables authentication as well as sharing of healthcare data with various folks in government, as well as in the larger research community. And we're still exploring exactly what the different project deliverables are going to be, but hopefully one day, that RAS or whatever that future platform, federated authentication data sharing platform, is going to be, will allow us not only to share some of that research data that is important to NIH, but even the healthcare data that's important to improving the health outcomes of all Americans.
Paul, this is Scott Corey from ACL. Do you have a timeline on that work that you were just discussing about research authentication? The reason I'm asking is that there are a number of places where we see the potential for collaboration and provision of data across the continuum of healthcare and human service providers, and the availability to make data available that has acknowledged value and is authenticated and is understandable and can be easily taken up is a huge potential accelerator for research of all kinds. And so that it's something that I have both a personal and professional interest in. So if that's possible to bring those results and bring that direction, it'd be really interesting to learn more about.
Scott, would you be interested in working with us as a a sponsor, maybe the sponsor, but if not, maybe one of the sponsors, because this is an incredibly important topic. And I know you deal with it. We deal with it here at CMS as well, and how we could bring some folks together to put something out. I don't know about you, but sometimes here we see politics and culture as the things that we're fighting uphill when we're doing this. Maybe we could put something out as more of an academic approach to it.
Bobby, I'd be delighted to. I mean, my time is fairly limited, and we're at the opposite ends of the spectrum for size amongst HHS agencies. I'd be really happy to have a conversation about that and try and figure out how to be able to do it. Not entirely sure I can commit to that, but yeah, I think it's incredibly important to be able to do that. So it would be great if we could have that conversation.
Okay, Scott, we'll follow up with you. Thank you.
And just to, in my mind, actually, there are already solutions out there that we can take advantage of. There's obviously a lot of improvements and that need to be made to really ensure that everyone can really start to share data in a way that they need. But there's already some existing solutions. So yeah, maybe we can connect about what those are, and maybe they'll work for what you need, Scott, right now.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, any other topics that we want to bring up and discuss today? Nancy, when is our next session? I don't have that handy.
We don't have that on the calendar yet. I know that the HHS team has the January meeting assignment. I think they haven't gotten back to us with a date yet, but definitely either January, late January, or early February, we'll have another meeting.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Nancy. And I do recall that Amir was talking about that at our last leadership session. So I know that there's work going on right there. For anyone who's on the session who has some ideas for speakers, we'd welcome those ideas. If you'd like to speak or bring together a panel, then please approach us, and you can contact any one of us that are a part of the leadership team, and then we'll take it and run with it once you give us the data. Okay, again, Eric, yes, sir.
Hey, how are you? I actually had a question for Craig real quick related to ARPA-H. I know a few months ago, I believe it was Dr. Russell was speaking and, was standing up the new agency and whatnot. He'd said, hey, for the public out there, we don't yet need you to send your ideas in for problems for us to think about solving once, because we need the PMs to be appointed first. At what point or what's the mechanism if we have ideas for problems to be explored? Should we send those in?
Yeah. So I sent a link in the chat for program managers. Typically, programs require two pieces, so person plus idea. The ARPA model is, predicated on having a program manager run with it. So if you had an idea, we would love it, but it has to be attached to one of those visionary types of individuals who can run with that idea. Just part of the process.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, again, in the spirit of training to standard, not to time, any additional comments or questions today? All right, Macon, thank you very much again for coordinating this and bringing this great group of panelists together. To the panelists that are still here, thank you as well. A fascinating conversation. And again, not quite our norm, but I think extremely valuable. And that's why we need to continue to be as diverse as we can in bringing together speakers to have conversations about this. Reminder, this was recorded, and we will be sharing out the panelist comments on that recorded message so that if you want to go back and hear that again or share that with one of your team members, then please do so. Pending any additional questions, we'll end the day and wish you all a very, very happy holiday season and Happy New Year if we don't see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
you.
y'all. Yep. Bye-bye.